things that were there in the start and after, but not in the middle, and things that were there in the middle that sort of stayed frozen, like the armor from the, say, 1500s Japan. The armor kind of stays the same after that. The sort of dark navy blue and red and black colours, and yellow to a degree. That style, kind of the most famous style. So I think, and the same with two-handed swords, katana, longsword, and all others, but mainly those two, seem to be kind of and castles as well. It's sort of unique to the Middle Ages, at least in the West, anyway. Like castle, like you had castles before, and you had fortresses, sorry, before in antiquity period, Greco-Roman and stuff like that, and you have them after, like the Georgian, Victorian, and modern forts. But these seem to be sort of exclusively medieval, as far as I can tell. So the things that are like exclusively medieval is like the two-handed sword, full suit of armor, castles, right? So there's some kind of unique time hyphen geographical, like Einsteinian space time. It seems to be a sort of quite specific space and time kind of situation. Why it was in the middle period and not before or after, and why the things like these kind of semi-timeless and also unarmed you could say. You could cheat a bit in the classification system and say sport combat, which again is not necessarily martial arts, I know, but if you included that, then it's very strange with all this modern technology that you've got your Nokia and your BJJ and hand wraps and gloves and stand up and strike, all these things which are unarmed in the age of technology. It's a very strange tautology or oxymoron, it does seem weird. Very odd. Odd that those two things, the extreme high and low tech, go together, but yeah, the stuff that seems to be peculiar to the Middle Ages is interesting. And then you contrast the stuff that sort of stayed in the Middle Ages with the stuff that was sort of before and after, and also during the middle as well, I suppose, but that sort of endured permanently. Like you've got the Napoleonic cuirass. There's also the Brigandine, which is a sort of sleeveless armour from that's Middle Ages. But the ancient Greek armour was sleeveless, like a cuirass or a musculata. But the ancient Roman style was more of a t-shirt style with the sort of covering like the upper arms, like a T shape, whereas the ancient Greek was more sleeveless. Just I know there was Lintharax and there was t-shirt stuff like that, but like the Corinthian style was a sort of sleeveless thing, and things of that nature, and Spartan armor and stuff. So it came full circle, and your modern tactical armor, like your Kevlar, is sleeveless. So it somehow through the ages, the subconscious energy has maintained itself in the same way as this And there are other things as well from other cultures, but say the ancient gladiator, ancient Roman helmet with the decoration on, and then you compare this from the West. Like you can look at America and England and Europe mainland, and from as late as the 1900s, and they have a fireman's helmet styles that are actually roughly similar to this, with patterns on, and the Phrygian um, crest on the hat, and things like that. So, yeah, the energy sort of maintains itself subconsciously or hidden in plain sight, but the fact that it maintains itself that long is interesting. Anyway, so things that endure maybe are like the unarmed stuff, of practical use, like knives and daggers, versus a long sword, where one sort of has stayed into the modern era and one, yeah, exists in HEMA, but in general, not so much, I suppose. Um, so, yeah, things that come full circle. So there's the cuirass from ancient Greek to and before, possibly Egypt and possibly before that to Atlantis. But what I'm not, it's not History Channel. I'm just trying to give examples of things that sort of cycle themselves. Napoleonic cuirass, cavalry, cuirassiers, cavalry, is the English pronunciation, I think, of that horse fighter or horse rider. So yeah, you have your ancient Greek. There's also the Lorica Hamata, which is a kind of sleeveless chainmail. It's not solid plate armor, but it is a kind of sleeveless armor. It is. It does count as sleeveless armor. It's just not plate armor, but it is armor. So you could technically put the Lorica Hamata in that classification. And Squamata, for that matter, the fish scale style armor as well, if it's sleeveless. But yeah, this sleeveless torso armor has endured through the ages in different guises, where the other styles have gone for some reason. As I say, this modern, and it's interesting how the modern and the antiquity sort of mirror each other in a very strange way that the Middle Ages doesn't have that vibe. It's very interesting bullet point to notice that is lacking, as I say, that you know, as I say, the same with fortresses versus castles. These are both from antiquity and modern, whereas these are only Middle Ages. Same with the full suit of armor. In in general, as I say, in general, I know there are outliers and exceptions, but in general, and then so this torso armor, ancient Greece, Napoleonic, modern with the Kevlar, and then also short swords. Were also there Middle Ages, but have always sort of been there, before and after. The modern version will be the tactical short sword and the single edge machete, things like that. So it's sort of again endured through the ages, probably because I don't know. You don't in general. Again, I'm going to say in general. I know there's outliers and exceptions to the rule, but probably let's just say in general, 90% of the time, the short blades require less training if it's sort of bulky and shortish, and it's sort of hack and cut. And again, I know there's outliers and exceptions to the rule. I'm just talking about in general. Like the Chinese Dao sword. It's replacing the straight double-edged Jian or Jim, Jim, depending on which pronunciation you go with. Is because in general, it is simpler to, and it requires less training, less tuition fees, and blah blah blah. For the a sort of short sword chopper than it does like a straight double-edged long blade, because it requires more finesse. Most of the time, let's just say. So that's why those have probably persevered, because it's quite a simple, you can pick it up. A bit like some people would say with a cutlass or a saber, you can, with a short blade, you can kind of get the rough idea of it. There's the curved stabs and the cuts, and it's semi-self-explanatory. You can sort of piece some of the missing pieces together yourself in your mind. Whereas, as I say, with the Jan and the longsword, and whether it's Eastern or Western, it requires a more, in general, let's just say in general, most of the time, not 100% of the time, but say 80 to 90% of the time, it requires more finesse and etc. and etc. And that would require more tuition fees and training, and wouldn't be practical on a large scale. So that's why these have probably persevered, because of practical reasons, and also can be used in close quarters where a long blade couldn't as efficiently be used in that way. So probably efficiency, training, money, practicality, time as well. You might not have the time to master a thing over a long period. You might have a small, a very quick time frame that you need, just very immediate, and probably a bunch of reasons I've left out, but I've just covered a couple of the basic ones, just the raw basic bullet points to get the idea across. Yeah, so the idea of the vlog, whatever you call it, is to make the point of why certain things stayed Middle Ages, like full suits of armour, two-handers, things like that, castles, and then why, and the, as I say, that sort of navy blue and red Japanese armour with the sort of bowl pumpkin style helmet, and that, and the mittens, and the, again, I'm not like, I don't have a master's degree in samurai armor, but I think people get what I'm trying to say. If you look compared to the earlier armor of like the 11 to 1300s in Japan, that the Civil War period Sengoku armor is, not as flowery. Maybe it's more practical. I don't know. I don't know how to say it in very detailed form, but it's a sort of, takes on a more darker colour, less flamboyant sort of decor in general, in my opinion. But it sort of stayed that way when they peaked at that point. Same with the so-called, with the samurai sword, so-called, it got to a point it peaked and it kind of stayed that way, So this, sometimes in the middle period, things sort of stay, for some reason. But yeah, the point to take away from this is things sort of unique. I think there's something where the Middle Ages got, I don't know, isolated, and I don't know how to say, but things that were unique to that sort of stayed within that, whereas stuff before and after seems to have become full circle. Again, I don't know the reason. Something to do with energy and metaphysics or something. But yeah, so you've got the sleeveless armour, short swords, and forts, many other things, but those are some main basics, yeah, and these as well. That stay both antiquity and modern. Yeah. As well as like hatchets and knives and things, because they're more tools, I don't know. And machetes. Maybe because it's dual purpose, it could possibly be a reason. But yeah, things that stay permanent versus things that were just unique to that middle period for whatever the reasons, you know. Interestingly, the 1467 seems to be the same year as my Telhofer book, the WMA manual. So yeah, Western martial arts, just an alternative way of explaining HEMA, if you like, because some people get hyper pedantic in their definitions of HEMA because they might be on the autistic scale a bit, and I don't mean any offence by that, but 100% there will definitely be quite a couple of those people within the HEMA community, I am pretty sure. But anyway, yeah, full circle stuff. Just basic bullet points, nothing fancy. Sleeveless armour, short swords, fortress, and certain styles of head protection. So yeah,